Up next on today's Wild West.
I'm never allowed to have this much fun.
They call it Paradise Ranch.
Another brook trout.
In Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains. You'll see why, just ahead. Plus, it's the hotel where Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid once stayed.
When you step in the Occidental, you're stepping back in time.
We'll check into Buffalo's historic Occidental Hotel and the amazing treasures of Cheyenne's Nelson Museum of the West. A Wyoming episode of today's Wild West is just ahead. The Wild West. It's still out there. And we'll show you how to find it. This is today's Wild West. It's another day in paradise. Just getting started as the Wranglers drive in the horses at Paradise Ranch. Promises to be another splendid day of riding, fishing, hiking, and just enjoying the chance to be here.
Incredible. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world.
In this beautiful valley in the Bighorn Mountains, west of Buffalo, Wyoming.
And it's actually the one place where when you say, where should we go for a family trip? That everybody in the family says, yeah, the ranch.
Paradise Ranch has a rich history that dates back more than 100 years ago, when a couple of cowboys working in this area looked out over this valley and said, this is paradise. The name stuck, and that Western heritage has been a big part of this ranch ever since.
We're a traditional dude ranch, and as a consequence of that, horses are central to the operation. In a normal year, we'll keep 180 horses here for a guest.
And it's quite an operation to care for those 180 horses once they're all driven into the big corral, where a team of wranglers work together like a well-oiled machine. They start by serving breakfast. A couple of gigantic bales of hay rolled out for the horses
Woman power.
and pitched into the feeding trough that rings the corral. Later, it's time to saddle the horses for the day's rides.
We're having quite the adventure. We love it here.
Camille Friesen is here with her husband. She works with the horses.
The creation is amazing. We're in the middle of paradise, hence the name.
I love it.
While Jacob Friesen is one of the fishing guides.
There's nothing like it in terms of being outdoors, being close to creation, just a chance to interact with everything in a really unique way.
Jacob's day starts early too. He and head fishing guide Dan Cowsley are already reeling them in
Another brook trout.
as the sun begins to light up the valley.
It doesn't take long, huh?
It does not. Just got to get the fly in the water and you're rewarded with a beautiful trout.
The fish are plentiful and hungry this morning in beautiful French Creek, which runs right through the middle of the 160 acres of private Paradise Ranch land, surrounded by 1 million acres of national forest.
The bigger one, this is a Yellowstone cutthroat.
Dan says this part of the West is home to the best fly fishing anywhere, and Paradise Guides can take you to lots of great fishing spots off the ranch as well.
Let me say, it was wonderful.
My mom caught 9 fish. She caught 9 fish.
9 fish. I caught a fish on my first cast.
Lee McGuigan and daughters Ann and Molly are just back from one of those trips.
Right on the Powder River, one of the prettiest places I've ever seen.
So on your back cast, pause a little more.
Don't know a thing about fly fishing?
There's a lot to it.
You've come to the right place. Paradise kicks off the week with a fly fishing clinic for anglers of all ages.
Helping someone to hook into that first fish is pretty exciting.
That first horseback ride can be pretty exciting too.
We had to Google what loping meant on Monday night.
First-time guests Josh and Ann and their son Daniel.
So you guys basically had never ridden hardwood before.
Never really.
Were essentially first-time riders as well.
Been on a horse once before.
But with the help of a Paradise riding lesson, we're trotting and loping on the fast rides by week's end.
People keep telling us we're horse people. I think we might start believing them pretty soon.
You can sign up and have a lesson one-on-one with one of our wranglers. You learn more in that one-on-one experience than you'd probably learn all week just jumping on a ride.
The ranch is also a paradise for those who love to ride.
I'm never allowed to have this much fun.
Like Cindy Schwab. She competes in dressage and 3-day eventing back home.
So you have your own horse?
Yes.
So what do you think of the horses here?
They're amazing.
Yeah?
Oh, to find so many good horses in one place.
And so many good places to ride.
It's just phenomenal. And we've gone on a different trail every day, and they're all just spectacular.
With 1 million acres, you'll never be on the same trail twice. Wide open plains, forests, mountains, flats, basically any kind of country you can imagine. And you'll have plenty of chances to let your pony run.
Go, cow!
Plus, you can chase cows in team penning.
Go, Levi! Go, cow! Go!
Teams of riders work together to drive 3 cows into a pen.
No, Nelly!
A simple concept, but these cows do have minds of their own.
There you go! Almost.
And they can make this game a real challenge. But it's all good fun.
It's so fun.
Super fun.
If you like today's Wild West, you'll love our Western wall art. See our beautiful images by clicking on photography at todayswildwest.com. There's fun to be had off the horse, too. Like the sunrise hike to the top of Fan Rock. Heading out in the pre-dawn dark is an invigorating way to start the day. Watching that sun come up makes it all worthwhile.
Well, we're surrounded by national forest in every direction, so everywhere you go is beautiful hiking and no one to bother you.
Steve Fogley has run the Paradise Hiking Program for 10 years.
It's actually really tough. I mean, I'm outside all day talking with really interesting people, so every day is pretty good, to be honest.
But all of it, I don't know, just the whole experience is just amazing.
Time together hiking, fishing, and riding builds a cowboy camaraderie that knits guests into lifelong friends. Relationships that keep people coming back here year after year.
COVID? What COVID? After my first low, there's no COVID. No, it was.
It's been pretty fabulous.
It has.
Despite the fact that the world is crazy right now.
Yeah.
Coming back year after year, even though there were differences, it was still the same experience.
The Colemans have been reuniting with Laura and Steve Kalenda at the ranch since the couples met here years ago. And their kids, now young adults, have grown up together in the Paradise Ranch Children's Program. A program with fun activities for everyone from teens to toddlers.
Is this okay?
Mom and Dad get to play, while the kids will be busy riding, fishing, hiking, or feeding the baby calves.
Oh, she's ready to go.
I'm 16.
I'm 15.
And there's plenty here to keep the teens happy, too.
So you're having a great time, huh?
Yeah. Yes. It's just like a pretty view to look at, just like in general. And then I just like to like get out and like just explore nature and like ride horses, of course.
It's really nice not having your like phone and service around. That's kind of refreshing.
It's just like a nice escape route. Just like hang out with your family, meet some new people around the country and all that.
At day's end, we'd relive our adventures over dinner and enjoy refreshments and music in the outdoor pavilion. Or inside at the French Creek Saloon. And many of us gathered every afternoon for another great show as the horses take off at the end of the day for their evening pasture. That last run of the horses on the last day came way too soon. But for most people here, the week won't end with goodbye, but with plans to enjoy another day in paradise the following summer. Today's Wild West is in Buffalo, Wyoming at the historic Occidental Hotel, where Butch Cassidy, Calamity Jane, and Buffalo Bill spent the night. We'll take the tour coming up on today's Wild West. If you like today's Wild West, you'll love great rides of today's Wild West. See the first chapter and order your signed copy at todayswildwest.com. Calamity Jane, Buffalo Bill, Butch Cassidy, and the Sundance Kid. They're among the legends of the Old West who spent the night at the historic Occidental Hotel in Buffalo, Wyoming. and you can too.
When you step in the Occidental, you're stepping back in time. We've kept the authenticity of the Occidental.
From its vintage tin ceilings to the original wood floors and complete period furnishings, the hotel is real deal Old West.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like being back in Old Buffalo.
You're staying in a living museum. This is a living museum.
The Occidental began in 1879 as a collection of tents along Clear Creek, catered to miners coming out of the nearby Bighorn Mountains looking for a hot meal and a place to stay.
Well, it's one of the last frontier hotels in the United States. You know, they're getting few and far between.
Soon replaced by a permanent log hotel, the Occidental also housed a bank, a stagecoach stop, a restaurant, and a saloon, and became the center of frontier Buffalo.
We had court here when there wasn't a courthouse when it was being built. I mean, the posse to hunt down Nate Champion's killer was formed here in the saloon.
Hired gun Tom Horn once checked in during those early years, as did future President Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid both stayed here. Butch Cassidy signed the ledger in 1896, and it's very interesting because he did sign the ledger Butch Cassidy. He didn't sign it Leroy Parker or any other kind of alias. He literally signed it Butch Cassidy.
With talk of the railroad coming to town, new owner Oscar Quick replaced the wooden hotel with a new brick structure.
The reason we have the buildings today, the brick, the wood trim, the tin ceilings, are actually because of him, who purchased it in 1896.
But the railroad chose to build their depot in nearby Sheridan. Legend says the despondent and financially struggling Quick, also mourning the death of his young daughter, lost the hotel in a poker game to ranchers John Smith and his son Al.
This is how the folklore goes. There's a very fine line between folklore and history, but yeah, he lost the hotel.
Al's wife Margaret was recruited to run the place while they figured out what to do with it. She never left, running the Occidental for the next 59 years, until she died at the age of 92.
Margaret Smith was an amazing woman that kept this place running all the way till 1976, and then her kids then had it afterwards. So without her and her impact, this building might not be here.
While Margaret did keep the hotel going, the hotel was also going downhill.
The building was getting very, very dilapidated.
And by the 1990s, there were plans to tear it down. But Californians Dawn Dawson and her husband, author John Wexo, bought the building just in time.
It was 8 weeks from being torn down. The city was going to tear it down. And so she saved the building.
Long story short, they began the process of restoring the Occidental to its former glory.
All the bricks been repointed on the building, new roof.
Before handing the reins to current owners, Dave and Jackie Stewart.
It's been a labor of love to keep it going, for sure, you know. But the hotel's doing well.
Today, the Stewarts operate a thriving, acclaimed historic hotel that attracts people from all over the world.
75% of our clientele in the summer is European. The Europeans come here for the history, you know. They want the history of the Old West, and we have it here.
And the music. The hotel saloon hosts live music every night, where you can hang out at the historic bar and check out the bullet holes from back in the day and the original tin ceiling.
Not to mention the food that we serve here. We've got elk and bison.
And just steps away inside the hotel, you can enjoy fine dining at the Virginian, a restaurant named after the famous novel by Owen Wister, who is believed to have written at least part of that book while staying at the Occidental.
Supposedly those characters are based off of locals that lived here at the turn of the century.
Ernest Hemingway is another author who spent the night here, as did former President Herbert Hoover. More recent famous guests include singer-songwriter Michael Martin Murphey, the cast of the hit modern TV western Longmire, and actor Paul Giamatti.
And he came out and stayed with us for 10 days. Had a ball. He wanted to stay in almost every room.
All of the rooms, in fact the entire hotel, is decorated and furnished like a period-correct Old West time capsule, but with all the amenities you'd expect in a modern hotel. Plus, something you might not expect.
We have been voted the most haunted hotel in Wyoming. We've got a little girl ghost named Emily, who kind of runs around upstairs in the 1904 structure.
Guests have left a collection of dolls in a coffee room for Emily.
Part of the reason that we chose this, we are like fascinated by the paranormal stuff, so we'd heard that this hotel might have some haunted rooms or haunted levels upstairs. So that was the first draw, but then we just kind of stayed for...
Because it was just beautiful and fun.
And if you like Western history, you're in the right neighborhood. The site of the Fetterman Massacre, the Wagon Box Fight, and Fort Phil Kearny are just a short drive from the hotel. The Little Bighorn Battlefield, where Custer made his last stand, is just 90 minutes north. The Occidental was founded just 4 years after that most famous fight of the Indian Wars.
I think it's cool to think about what this place, back in the day, what it looked like, and kind of picture that when we're here. So.
Would you recommend?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Not many people get to step into a historic building of this age with this kind of culture and history because a lot of these things have been lost.
Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the Occidental Hotel, where Butch and Sundance, Calamity Jane, and Buffalo Bill spent the night. And you can too.
Oh, it's an incredible thing.
More cool treasures from the Old West and much more up next at the Nelson Museum of the West. If you like today's Wild West, you'll love Great Ranches of Today's Wild West. See the first chapter and order your signed copy at todayswildwest.com. Silver saddles and rawhide, cowboys and cowgirls,
Civil War.
U.S. cavalry troopers and Plains Indians.
I call this my fine and fancy firearms case.
Historic firearms, big game animals, and much more. More than 10,000 fascinating items to see at the Nelson Museum of the West in downtown Cheyenne, Wyoming.
In the collection, we have about 10,000 artifacts and 5,000 books in the library that are all related to the Old West.
And that would have been the first cavalry that would have been in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Founder Robert L. Nelson, better known as Bob, has been collecting since he was a kid.
I collected rocks, and I collected stamps, and I collected just about anything else that a little kid without any money could collect. Well, when I got older, I started collecting antique firearms.
Bob was just a young teenager when he acquired his first gun.
And I remember very well because I was about 13 years old, and a neighbor had it, and he gave it to me.
That historic pistol turned out to be the beginning of a collection that would become the Nelson Museum, where you can still see that gun today.
My first passion when I was 15 years old was collecting antique firearms. They were quite available. You could find them from old ranchers or in town. You could pick up some nice firearms. It's quite the opposite now.
Smith & Wessons were a personal favorite. There are also Colts, Winchesters, and Remingtons, all in excellent condition.
That's one of 3 that was shipped from the factory with elephant ivory grips. That gun is brand new.
After collecting firearms, Bob moved on to Native American artifacts. Nelson's focus was on the Plains Indian tribes that once roamed what is now Wyoming. His collection includes beautiful headdresses, shields, and war shirts.
This is one of the examples of one that I have that I know who wore it. A man named Pretty Hale, there's a photo of him there wearing the shirt.
But with Native artifacts, that kind of history is rare.
It's almost impossible to find out the history of a Native American item. Virtually all of those items were collected, not with the idea of preserving the owner, but because somebody thought it was pretty.
The museum's collection of historic cowboy gear includes 400 pairs of spurs. And ironically, some of the finest antique cowboy collectibles are found on the East Coast.
These guys came out here thinking they wanted to be a cowboy. They'd buy the finest gear, and about one winter here was enough. Back east they went, and they took all that great gear with them.
Cowgirls are well represented too.
Now this particular cowgirl here, she was from the city. She's a city girl, and this is a very expensive, high-grade outfit that she's wearing.
As is the King of the Cowboys and the Queen of the West, Bob's childhood heroes, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans.
Any kid my age when I was young, we were raised on Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and Rex Allen.
The U.S. Cavalry, of course, played a huge role in the history of the American West, and the Nelson has a very thorough collection of its ever-evolving saddles, uniforms, and equipment.
Yeah, that's an 1874 model, and then it didn't change until 1885. We don't have any reproductions in this museum, with the exception of a few pairs of military boots. All of the cowboy, all of the military firearms, and all of that are vintage.
But it's important to remember, most every display you see, the uniform, the hat, the pistol, were each acquired as individual items, then assembled to make a complete outfit.
It's not like you can go out and you can buy a saddle that looks like this and a uniform that looks like that. You have to buy every single piece and put it together like a big puzzle.
It's all part of a bigger picture and a bigger story of the historic American West.
I designed the collection basically to show every item that somebody might have a question about that had to do with the Old West in this area and in Wyoming and broader West.
This is to bear the charge.
Yep.
There's more upstairs. Nelson's collection of hunting trophies.
I started hunting when I was about 10.
From every continent except Antarctica.
I think hunting is inbred into Wyoming boys. I mean, I'd have never met a Wyoming boy who didn't want to go hunting, and I don't care if the boy was 3 years old.
The attorney began hunting around the world in the early 1980s, and the animals he brought home to display were a big hit.
Particularly the school kids that we have coming through here.
Bob's well aware that some people don't like hunting, but he believes those opponents are not aware of the many positive impacts of hunting.
The Safari Club of America has, I believe, 35,000 members worldwide. And every one of those people is dedicated to the conservation of wild animal populations.
Hunting all over the world can be quite the adventure.
I shot it at 20 feet.
And his cousin of the grizzly bear, shot in Alaska, brings back some vivid memories of the day he charged.
So you almost ended up in that guy's mouth, huh?
Man, that's what he looked like when he was running at me.
Bob's now retired from hunting.
Mainly because I don't have any more wall space.
Touring the Nelson Museum of the West is a great way to spend the day. And thousands come through every year.
And it delights me to no end to see people oohing and awing and having a wow moment looking at some of these items.
That's it for now. We're back next time with more cool stuff from today's Wild West. I'm Mark Bedore. We'll see you down the trail. For more information on the people and places featured in today's Wild West, or to order show DVDs and books, visit todayswildwest.com. Funding for Today's Wild West provided by the Leggett Foundation,